What's going on, everybody? What is going on? Starting a few moments early. Maybe give everybody some time to get in the room. Hope everybody's day is going amazing. Hope everybody's day is going well. Oh, hold on. Sorry about that. So we will just wait a few moments and just chop it up a little bit while we're waiting for everyone to come into the room. I hope everything is going well. Hope everybody can hear me okay. Had a few issues yesterday, but I think, excuse me guys, I think I have them all fixed now. So hopefully everybody will be seeing everything smoothly. Won't be too many mishaps. What's going on, Sharif or Sheriff Star? So yeah, man, it has been a really difficult time here this last week trying to get everything set up and ready for the stream. So it was pretty much an entire week that I didn't stream because I had gotten, like I told you guys the last time, I gotten a new computer, and it took me a while to get everything installed, to get everything working properly. Took about a week for me to get just programs installed, sound cards installed, graphic cards installed, a new microphone. It just took a long time to get everything right, and I tried to stream yesterday evening because I was supposed to stream, of course, yesterday morning, and that didn't work out too well because it was glitchy. I didn't have some settings set right, so my cousin texted me and he said maybe you might want to drop your video down to 720p because I had it on 1080 and it was just glitching up a little bit. So I brought it down. So thanks to my cousin, I think everything is better now. Appreciate it, TJ. What's going on, Terry Baker? What's up, everybody? As everyone comes into the room, I appreciate you guys. It's a chilly little Monday night here in Nashville, and I'm still really, really sleepy. I was up all night. What was yesterday? Saturday night, and I slept last night, but something happened that inspired this show today. What's going on, Monica? Good to have you in the room. So yeah, we will hopefully have everybody just come in a moment. We'll get started. So let me know what's going on with everyone, guys. Tell me something good while we're waiting. We'll wait for a few more moments so that everybody get in here. If you can, as you come in, if you could like the video, I would appreciate it. Try to get as many people as possible in here. The more we like, the more YouTube will put the video out to people, and we can get as many people as possible in the show. So, what's up, BB? And we'll probably open it up for some phone calls here a little bit later if anyone wants to call in and share their input on what we talk about this evening. Um, yeah, Monica, I'm glad you were able to catch a live show. I appreciate you coming in, man. This is hopefully it's going to be an interesting conversation. I had a very interesting night as we're going to talk about. What's going on, Michelle Martin? Says I got you live. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Glad you came through. Glad you came through. So yeah, I didn't want to go into too much detail about the title because it's such an interesting thing. Uh, as you can see, the title is My Grandmother, the Woman, the Doctor, and the Winds of Change. And it took me a minute to come up with this title after everything that inspired it happened. I can honestly say I was up until, well, not up until I was up. I've been up since 4 this morning, and I am not a morning person at all. But I woke up this morning after this happened, and immediately came to my computer and started typing because I didn't want to lose these thoughts. So I guess we will jump right in and go into this topic. So again, the title is My Grandmother, the Woman, the Doctor, and the Winds of Change. So this title is inspired by a dream that I had last night. And it was a very interesting dream. It was a very long dream, but it was very pertinent to what I talk about here on this channel. And so I thought I would share it with you guys and talk about how it ties in to a lot of the things that I talk about on this channel. Because it really did. It was a pretty profound dream. And every now and then, well, actually a lot, I have a lot of dreams that have shifted the course of my life. I pay really close attention to my dreams because I feel they're really important. And even more so when there's somebody that comes to visit you during your dreams. So last night I had a dream. And in this dream, I was at my grandmother's house, which is now my aunt's house. Okay. And in the back of my grandmother's house, she had a beauty salon built onto the back of her house because she was a beautician. So she had the salon built onto the back of the house. So in this dream, I was in this house, my grandmother's house, and at the time, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my aunt all lived together. So I'm in the house, and I'm going to the back where the shop was. And there was this woman in the shop. So as I went into the shop, it was the same, but it was different. The dimensions of the shop were much larger. It was a much, much larger room. So there was a bed in the shop, and this woman was on the bed. And so I was standing next to the bed, and I had a ton of paperwork that I was filling out for some reason. Now this woman was there, and I wasn't paying too much attention to her. And so she started talking to me, and I looked down, and for some reason, I was just in my shirt and my underwear. And she looked at me like, I cannot believe you are standing here in your underwear. And I was like, no, 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 no. That's not what happened. I've had clothes on this whole time. I don't understand why I'm standing here in my underwear. So I covered up and we started talking, and it was like I was being real awkward. I was being real weird. And I was like a dude with no game. And she was looking at me like, you know what? I thought I might have given you a chance, but you are so lame. And I was like, yeah, I know. I get it. I'm real lame. And so I just ignored her and started filling out the papers again. And so there was an address on these papers, and she was asking me if I knew this particular address. And I did, but it was vague, right? So she asked me if there was a trash can in the shop. And so I pointed to two of them. I said, there's one over there, there's one down there. So as I was going through the shop, there was a huge opening, and I turned to the left. Now, when I turned left, there was this huge staircase, and there were all these offices, but the offices were outside, but I was still inside this shop area. So I was going to these offices, and I was about to tell the woman, hey, I found these offices, and I dropped my papers. So I bent down to get ready to pick up my papers, and I looked back, and my great grandmother walked through the shop. Now, my great grandmother has been passed for a long time, passed away a long time ago, and she didn't say a word. She walked by both of us, and we both kind of gave each other the look, me and the woman, like it's a good thing that you were being lame because your grandmother just walked in here. And so my grandmother came in and sat down and lit up a cigarette and just sat there and smoked her cigarette. Now, before my grandmother passed away, in real life, not the dream, in real life, toward the end of her life, she wasn't quite there mentally. So I would have to go to my grandmother's house at 2 a.m. while my aunt would go to work. And so I would be there when she would wake up, and I would watch my grandmother all day. I would cook for her and we would sit and talk. But the thing about my grandmother when I was watching her was that around 5 a.m, every morning, I would hear a little and it was her striking her lighter. So I would know, okay, grandma's up. I gotta go and make her breakfast, whatever. That was my way of always knowing when grandma was up. So in the dream, I heard the sound. She was sitting there smoking a cigarette. So I went to where she was. But before I went to her, I went to pick up my papers. Now, my grandmother saw this woman that was in the shop. And my grandmother looked at her and she said, "What are you, mixed or something?" And my grandmother had a way of talking sometimes where you could tell she wasn't really happy with you. She had a real way with words and a way of saying things. She was real blunt. And so she said, "What are you, mixed or something?" So this woman, she was black, but she was light skinned. And so the woman looked at my grandmother and said, "Well, what are you, a Negro or something?" And I could tell that there was about to be a misunderstanding. So after I got my papers, I heard them talking, and I got up to go toward the woman, and I waved at the woman to get her attention. And I mouthed to her, "Don't do that. It's the dementia. Don't talk to her like that." And so she got the point, and I could see that she was super embarrassed. But right when that happened, everything in the dream kind of changed, and I wasn't nervous anymore. So I was standing straight up. I was confident. I was fully clothed. I had nice clothes on, or comfortable clothes on for the most part. And the woman looked at me, and she looked at me very differently. And it was like she admired this person who I became. And I looked at her, and I could tell she was being a little flirty the way she was looking at me. And so I walked to her and I said, "Your eyes are portraying you." And she said, "Yeah, I know. That doesn't happen that much." She said, "It hasn't happened before." So I left her there. I turned to my left, and there was this huge commotion going on. I looked, and it was like a hospital had opened up in the shop. So the dimensions of the shop changed again, and it got bigger, and it moved further away from me and opened up, and there was this hospital desk, and there were all these doctors standing around the desk. And I looked down, and I was wearing a white lab coat. So I walked over to the desk thinking, okay, I must be a doctor now. So I walked over to the desk, and one of the doctors looked at me and said, "I need a stethoscope. Hand me a stethoscope." And so I was looking around like, I don't know where there's a spare stethoscope. I'm just standing here like not really even knowing what was going on. So I looked around the desk and I found a stethoscope, and I handed it to him, and he took it and went off. So there's another doctor standing there, and he said, "Next time the doctor asks you for a stethoscope, put it in his hand firmly and say the name of the instrument so he knows it's there." I said, okay. And I still wasn't really quite, sure what was going on. I just said, okay, So at that moment, I saw another doctor standing looking at a board. And you know how in the hospitals, there's this board where the doctors have all the names of the patients and everything. So this doctor was standing there looking at the board, and he was just standing still, and he had this look on his face like he didn't know what was going on. So I walked up to him, and I looked at the board, and the names on the board were there, but they weren't there. They were floating around and opening up, and you could see into them. It was like the names were little portals into other places, and they just kept floating around the board. And the doctor just stood there looking at them, just frozen. And he wouldn't say anything. I said, "Hey," and he wouldn't say anything. And I said, "Hey, look at me." And he looked at me for a moment. And at that moment, I said, "You're trying to fix too many people at once. Which one of these people can you help right now, in this moment? Find that person and help that person." But the doctor stood there. He still didn't say anything. He just stood there. So I took his stethoscope from his neck and I placed it around my neck. And right when I put his stethoscope on, I had this vision. This is still in the dream. I had this vision, and I was looking at a wall, but the wall was like a big TV. And it was a beautiful day on the screen. Just a beautiful, beautiful day. And I was looking out into this landscape. And in the middle of the landscape, a tornado formed. And it was getting larger and larger and larger. And so I walked up to the wall where the screen was, and the tornado kept getting larger and larger, and I was looking at it grow. And then all of a sudden, instead of looking at the tornado, I was inside the tornado looking out from the tornado. And as I did that, the entire world that I was looking out of began to rotate, and it turned upside down, and then it kept going. It kept turning, and then it stopped. It was as if I was looking into the mind of the doctor I had just spoken to. And so as soon as the world stopped moving, I snapped out of it and I put the stethoscope, I pulled it further around my neck, and I looked around the room I was in, and it was again like a hospital. It was almost like I was on the TV show ER, which is one of my favorite shows. I looked around the room and I was like, this is ER. I'm on a TV show. But it wasn't a TV show. There were no cameras. I was the doctor. And I was in this small, quote unquote, hospital. And when I looked back at the doctor who I had told, you're trying to fix too many things. You're trying to fix too many people at once. Which one of these people can you help right now in this moment? Find that person and help that person. And when I looked back at that doctor was me. And I was looking at myself while I was looking at all the problems on that board, and I was trying to solve all of them at the same time. And so I came out of myself and I told myself, you're trying to fix too many people at once. Which one of these people can you help right now in this moment? Find that person and help that person. And so as I looked back and saw that it was me standing there, I just kind of stopped and looked for a moment. And then I turned and walked away. And as I walked away, the woman who was ashamed of how she spoke to my grandmother was standing there, and she was still crying, and she was still standing in the exact same spot doing the exact same thing. After all this time, she was frozen in place in tears over something that happened. And I just looked at her. I didn't say anything to her. I didn't try to comfort her. I just looked at her. And then I kept walking. And as I walked toward the wall, the entire wall opened up, and it was the world, and it was a sunset. And I walked out of the room into the sunset. And then I woke up. That was at 4:16 this morning. And I thought about that dream. After I had it, it was really weird because I didn't want to move. I didn't want to move because I could still kind of feel my grandmother's presence, like she was still around somewhere. And I sat and I really tried to think, what was the importance? What is the meaning of this dream? What did this mean? What was it trying to tell me? And I thought, as ex-JWs here in this community, we all deal with a lot. We've all lost a lot. We've lost a lot of mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, children, friends. And we really want to help them. And we really want them to see that we're good people. And we really want them to see that the Watchtower is not what it really is making itself out to be. But in this dream, when I told myself, you're trying to fix too many people at once. Which one of these people can you help right now, in this moment? Find that person and help that person. And when I looked back at myself in that dream, it was as if saying, you're trying to help and fix so many people in this organization who have, left you, that you still want to help. But you can't help all of those people. Right now, The only person that you can fix is you. And looking at that storm, it was like saying, the winds of change, they are only going to blow on you. You are the only one who can feel the winds of change changing you. You can't feel anyone else's winds of change, and you can't cause the winds to change for them. You're the only one that in this moment, right now, with what you're going through and what you're dealing with, you are the only person who you truly can fix right now. And you need to find that person and help that person. You need to find who you are and help yourself. And so I sat there thinking about this dream, thinking about, it's been a long time that I left the organization. And it's been a long time since I've spoken to, mother, father. And it's been a lot. Sometimes it feels like your whole world is upside down and you're upset about it. And you wish they would listen, and you wish they would come out, and you wish you could have everything back the way it was. And you wish they would not treat you the way they treat you, and you wish that they would be proud of you and happy that you have your own mind, and you wish that they would, and you wish that they would, and you wish that they would. But you can't do anything about that. You can only change yourself. And I think at the end of the day, that dream was saying, in addition to everything else that I've said, that you are, and I'm speaking for myself in this moment, you can literally make yourself sick trying to help all these people and worrying about all these people. But you won't make yourself, you can make yourself better by worrying about yourself. Isn't that a weird thing? You can make yourself sick trying to help everyone else, but you can make yourself better for sure helping yourself. So yeah, Paul, keep shining the light on them. The rest of the world needs to know and understand what happens behind the fake smiles and love bombing of that cult. Yes, that's true. That's true. But at the same time, once we leave the organization, and this kind of plays into what I was talking about yesterday, at a certain point, we have to concentrate on fixing ourselves. We can't. It's almost like that movie, The Matrix, how Neo said, you got yourself out. I didn't get you out. There's just, for the most of us, it's very rare that we're able to pull someone out of the organization. We hope, and we wish, and we wish, and we wish. But for the most part, something has to happen to someone, either physically or some mental epiphany has to happen for them to come out of the organization. And once we come out of the organization, yeah, we do want those people to come out. But we have a lot of healing to do ourselves. We have much more healing to do right now coming out of the organization than they need or feel that they need while they're in the organization. They feel safe. They're surrounded by all their friends and families. So they don't feel the need to fix themselves. We are out. And in most cases, we're alone and upset. And we have all this, mental problems. We have so many mental issues and dealing with so many feelings that we've never dealt with before. Guilt and sorrow and loneliness. And we really, really have to concentrate on ourselves too. And again, with what I was talking about yesterday, it gets to a certain point, I feel that for myself, I was so into looking at the material on YouTube about the Jehovah's Witnesses and the XJWs and the Watchtower and leaving the Watchtower and all the things that the Watchtower was doing and how, they're doing this and they're doing that. And I was constantly looking at it. But it wasn't really helping. It wasn't helping me. I feel like it was a hindrance to me because it was as if I was looking for some type of validation for why I left. And that wasn't really necessary. I already knew why I left. I already knew why I made the decision. I already knew what the organization was doing, what it was, and how it was detrimental to me. So at a certain point, I had to say, okay, I'm only going to look at material that is talking about what to do after, which was why the show I did yesterday was called So You Left the Org, Now What? Because I don't want to keep focusing on just the Watchtower. I want to focus on what we do after we leave the organization, how we deal with life after the organization. We can talk about all the shit that goes on in the organization all day, but how is that going to help us mentally since we've left? Looking at all the stuff and saying, yep, they did that. See, I knew that. See, I told you. Yep, we already know that shit. We already know that shit. We already know how we feel about the organization. We already know how the organization feels about us. We already know how we feel about our families, and we already know how our families feel about us. We know this like a tug of war. One person having a tug of war against your entire family, and they're all pulling the opposite way from you, and you're by yourself pulling, and you're wishing that you were strong enough to pull all of them, but you can't. And they're not strong enough to pull you, surprisingly. For some reason, it ends up being a stalemate, and no one pulls anyone. But if you continue to hold on to the rope, they may not pull you toward them, but in some weird way, they will pull you down. And that is what I'm trying to avoid. Because I don't want to be pulled down because I'm trying to pull someone toward me. And it's a futile attempt. So I feel that at a certain point we have to realize we are unable to clear that board. We're going to have to do that and fix ourselves. We're going to have to take that stethoscope and stop trying to examine what's wrong with everyone else with that stethoscope and figure out what's wrong with us and figure out how to help ourselves. And put that stethoscope in your ears and listen to the things that you're saying to yourself and the things that you're saying that you need and the things that you're saying will help you. It is not possible for us to help those who don't want to be helped. No matter how much training you have in any field of medicine, if the person doesn't come to you and you can't get to them, well, there's not going to be any treatment. But we are always here, and we can always get help, and we can always help ourselves. The one thing you can assuredly change is yourself. You most definitely can change yourself if you want to, but there's no guarantee that you can change anyone else. So, yeah, guys, let's look at the chat. I think that is the extent of what I had to talk about tonight. Let's see who all is here and see if there is anyone that has anything to say. Let's see. Monica says, I like your interpretation and I'm going to take your advice. I can't keep trying to pull my family out of this organization. They are not interested. And that is exactly what it ends up feeling like. They are not interested. They don't want it. So at what point do we say, okay, they're not interested, they don't want this, why am I continuing to try to do it? Why am I continuing to try to give it to them? They don't want it. And it only hurts us. It only makes us feel like we're trying to hold on to something that doesn't want you back. And that is an extremely, extremely hurtful thing. I don't think there's something that hurts anyone more than trying to hold on to somebody that completely doesn't want you. That is one of the worst feelings, and especially when that person is a family member like your mother or father. That is the worst. Yeah. Paul says, I walked away from them over 30 years ago, yet it still affects me in certain ways. To this very day, I still find it hard to trust people. Yeah, I agree with that. I wonder how many people who have left the organization truly have really close friends and really close people to them that they really feel like they can trust, because it is very difficult to trust someone after you've had people that you've loved and supposedly loved you in your life, and then all of a sudden they're just gone, and nothing you can do can get them back. And I know personally, for me, it was very hard for me to really trust people. Like, I didn't have friends for several years after I left the organization. I have friends now. I have a handful of friends, like my guy friends. They're my real dudes. It's like 5 dudes. And that's it. But it took me literally, me and those guys have just gotten tight within the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years. And so I left when I was 25, 26. I didn't start having real, true friends again until I was almost 40. So, yeah, I understand, Paul. It is very difficult. Deanna Belt says, and healing will take longer than you think. You may think you're over it, but let's see what she says, but you're not. One thing will happen and bring you right back to the beginning. It's a constant struggle and work, mentally broken. It is a constant struggle. It's a constant struggle. And I think that is the same with almost any type of mental problem. It's a lot to deal with. It's a lot for us to deal with. And without trying to get to a point where I sound like some type of psychiatrist, which I totally am not, it's been so many years since I've spoken to them, but it still hurts. Like I've talked about before, it still hurts. It's not something that I don't think any person can get used to having your living parents not want to speak to you. I really don't think that is not something that you're going to get used to. That pretty much goes completely against what humanity is supposed to be like. So yeah, I agree. I think that's a very difficult thing to deal with, period. Hold on one second, guys. I think I'm gonna open up these phone lines if somebody wants to call in, but I want to make sure. I think everything is all set. So yeah, guys, the number is on the screen if anybody wants to call in and just talk about the issues that we are talking about tonight. That would be great. The number is 615-412-9335. Totally Faded says you are right. If you keep ruminating on the organization, you are still enslaved. You have to do whatever it takes to heal, whether it's law of attraction, meditation, therapy, etc. Agreed. And each of us are different. Each of us have a different way of dealing with the things that we deal with. And it's just not easy. It really isn't. It's I can honestly say that this whole journey has been one of the most difficult things I've dealt with, and I think this is the most difficult thing, and then getting through being homeless was the second. But dealing with not having your mother and father has been very, very difficult. Monica says, it may sound awful, but I would rather lose my parents in death than to have them choose to just abandon me and treat me like I'm dead. And I agree with that. I talked about that in one of my other videos, that I feel like for people who have left the organization, I feel like it's much worse for them in regards to their parents, because when a parent passes away, then you already know they left. They didn't have a choice as to leaving. So your not being able to speak to them was not due to a choice. It was due to them just passing away, which is what parents normally do. That's the life cycle. But when your parents choose willingly to be alive and not speak to you, that hurts so much more, because in the back of your mind you realize they are still here and you could still speak with them, but they would rather not speak to you. That is so much more hurtful than just losing a parent or someone in death. I think that is much, much more hurtful. So yeah, I agree with that completely. I agree with that 100%. Yes, Michelle Martin says, yes, the worst, when your own mother doesn't want a relationship with you, yet I continue to want to have a relationship with her, even though she's made it crystal clear that I'm basically dead in her eyes. I'm trying to move on without her. And that is the difficult thing. That is the thing that we deal with. That is the most difficult. Figuring out how to move on from the people that have been in your life your whole life. Yeah, it's difficult. It's very difficult. But the thing that I got from that dream too was that it turns our world upside down, just like it happened in the dream. My world, I was looking at the world and it was turned upside down. But I had two choices. I could either stand there frozen, like I was when I was looking at the board, looking at all the names of the people that I wanted to help, which there's so many, in the family. But trying to help all those people is not doing anything to help me move forward with helping myself. And in the dream, the only way, what happened at the dream, that in the dream that caused me to get better was that I left that person there, and I left the people who were sad and staying still and causing me to cry and grief. I left them all there, and I just walked out away from my old self into this new world. And you have to think about it. When we leave the organization, that's basically what we're doing. We are walking away from the entire world that we have dealt with our entire lives. We're walking away from a world and we're walking into a whole new one. And that is very difficult and can be very, very scary to literally walk into a world, especially think about it with us, especially us who are born in or who have been in for decades. But especially for people who are born in, you have been in this world your entire life. For me, it was almost 30 years. And then you leave that life and you leave that world, and you're in an entirely new world that you've never been in before. And you literally don't really have the tools you need to prosper in that world. You're basically starting over again without your parents, without your support system, without your friends. It's difficult. It's very difficult. Paul Brumfield says, my father doesn't have anything to do with me. Mother still tries to convince me to come back. Even after this time, I came to terms with it long ago. It is what it is now. I agree, man. That is pretty much what it is. So I understand. Let's look at some of these other comments too. Monica says, just knowing that people are surviving it despite how difficult it is a great source of encouragement. And it is. It's a very, very good thing that we all do in this organization to try to help each other. It's difficult, man. It is difficult. But it's totally doable, and we can all get through this thing that we're dealing with. Bianna Belt says, I was 18 and I chose to leave. My parents disowned me. I was alone. I went through hell, but now I have a master's degree in social work. I won, but sometimes I think I would have liked to share that with them. I completely agree with that statement. I think one of the things that really bothers me the most, and it was really weird because I was watching a movie last night. I was watching that old movie called Heat with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. I fell asleep on it when this dream happened. But there was a part in that movie where there was this one guy, this black guy who had just gotten out of prison, and he had a girlfriend, and he was getting this job, and his boss was a real jerk to him because he had got out of prison. So he felt like he didn't have anybody. He was like, why are you even talking to me, to his girlfriend? Why are you even talking to me? Why are you even messing with somebody like me? And she said, because I'm proud of you, because of what he had been going through, and he was still here. She just said, I'm proud of you. And he almost broke down. And I was like, man, how many of us in this organization just really want to hear your parents say, you know what? I know we don't think the same way, but the simple fact that you are adult enough to be able to make your own decision based on the research that you've done and say, you know what, based on what I've learned, I don't think this is the right thing for me. So I'm going to have to walk away from it. Just to hear your parents say, you know what, I am proud of you for being able to do that. Regardless of whether you agree with a person or not, especially if that person is your child, you should be, or not child, just your son or daughter, you should be proud of them if they get to the point where they can make their own decision, because that's what your job as a parent is. So I think all of us have that innate desire to be able to hear your parents say, I'm proud of you for doing something great. You know what I mean? So I understand what you're saying, BB, how you would want to have someone to share that with you. Cecilia Payne says, if this is something that you grew up in, it is a loss. But it's so hard to understand when family and so-called friends don't think. I'm not sure. Let me reread that. If it's something that you grew up in, it is a loss. But it's so hard to understand when family and so-called friends don't think. I see what you're saying. Yeah, it is difficult. It's a loss, man. It's a loss. But I think us being able to just have these conversations and have people to watch and talk and call in and share their stories, it has been such a great thing. There have been some great conversations I've had, some great conversations, some people that have called in and said things that I know for sure have helped so many people in this XJW community. So yeah, man. Let's look at this really quickly. Hold on one moment, guys. I'm trying to figure out something real fast. All right. I don't know if it's is Skype working properly? Let me make sure. I think there may be some little issue. Let me check something out, guys. Hold on one second. Make sure that everything is all right. Okay. All right. So yeah, guys, I think if anybody wants to call in, just let me know. And if not, I think we are. Let's see here. Hold on. Yeah, it's working. Everything's fine. It is therapeutic. It's very therapeutic. And that's one reason why I even like to do this, because there are times when I feel like the videos that we watch are fine. It's cool. It's good to know that the videos are out there and people are investigating the organization and trying to change the organization. That is great. But sometimes it's just great to have somebody just understand and listen to what you're saying. Like when you can talk about it and you know that the people who are on the other end actually understand what you're saying, that really helps a lot. It helps a lot. So that was the whole reason why I even started this channel and do it the way that I do it, with being able to have people call in. I think that is a thing that's really going to help. It really helps. So yeah, guys, I think we are at a point where, let's see, hold on. My father has no relationship with my son. This is Paul Brumfield. My son plays football at LSU. My father now wants to claim him. My son keeps him at arm's length because he can't understand how my father could write me off like that. You know what, Paul? That's a very, very, very good point. And I understand how you feel. I really do. With me, it was kind of the opposite. My mother wrote a book, and my daughters, mother, my ex, told me about the book, and what was so weird is that I supported her the whole time she was writing her book, and I would read it and critique it because I read a whole lot, so I would critique things to try to help her make her book a lot better. And so when she wrote the book, I looked at the back of the page on Amazon to see what she would say, and so she had a little thank you section when she talked about herself as an authoress, and said her words were she had a husband and a granddaughter. And I saw that and I was like, wow, she has a husband and a granddaughter. I was like, are you kidding me? You're not going to mention that you have a son, but people are going to pretty much assume that if you have a granddaughter that, you either have a son or a daughter somehow, but you're not going to mention it at all. Okay, that's fine. So what made it so weird to me was that she wanted to claim that she had a granddaughter, but she didn't even really spend time with her granddaughter. My own daughter was like, yeah, we really don't spend, like, there's no real connection to my daughter from her mother. But when she wrote this book, I think she knew that having that in there would be something like quote unquote endearing. If someone even read it, they would see that, be like, oh wow, she has a granddaughter. But to be able to just say, just to disavow your own son is really messed up. And now, like you said, Paul, your father doesn't have a relationship, but now that that your son plays at LSU, now he wants to claim him. That's some bullshit. That is some bullshit. And the same thing with my daughter. She would always say, I don't understand why your parents treat you like that. Like, she would be like, when I would always say, you know what, I hope they probably don't feel bad. But like her mom would say things like, I think they feel bad about how they're treating you. And me and my daughter both would look at each other and say, well, they should feel bad for what they're doing. It's fucked up. They should feel bad. TJ Meister. What's up, TJ? Thanks for helping. I talked about you earlier. Thanks for helping me fix my stream. It's much better today. So I did a whole bunch of stuff, and the last thing I did, I was like, you know what? Let me just turn it down to 720p, and that pretty much fixed everything. So thanks, TJ. Love you, cuzzo. Monica Landrum says, that's the same thing with my children, and now I have grandchildren, so they're missing out on not just me, but 2 new generations, and that just makes me mad. I get it, Monica. It does make you mad. It makes you super mad to know that you have this awesome life and they don't want any part of it. It's really, really maddening to know that, that you have a family member that doesn't want really to spend time with their children or grandchildren. Like, I don't understand. I just don't understand that. I will never understand that. And I think I want to talk about this in another video, but maybe it just needs to come up now. It's so weird that so many people talk about unconditional love. They talk about, oh, I love you. I love you. I've heard so many people say things like, I love you unconditionally. No matter what you ever, like, I can remember my parents saying that no matter what you do, I'll always love you. I'll always be there for you. I love you unconditionally. Unconditional love. But that's one thing that I think the world doesn't realize, that unconditional love for the most part is bullshit. Because those same people who say they love you unconditionally and then a condition changes where the love is not the same, they can't still say they love you unconditionally. I'm pretty sure most of us who are XJWs have had people in our lives that while we were in the organization said something like, I love you unconditionally. And now those people don't speak to you anymore. And so, people say things like, well, people can still love you even though they don't talk to you. And I just don't agree with that. I don't think love is just a feeling. Love is a feeling that causes a particular action. And so if you say you love someone, then there's some type of action that you have to do to show that that love is real. It's the same way, like I tell my daughter, don't listen to what someone says, pay attention to what they do. And it's the same way with love. If you tell someone you love them, but your actions don't show that you love them, eventually you're going to stop believing that that person loves you. And so this unconditional love that people supposedly have for people, it's a farce a lot of the times. That love is not unconditional, it's conditional. And the condition is that you believe the same way they believe, which is bullshit. It should not be that way, right? So, again, I think the point of that conversation, Monica Landrum says, if faith without works is dead, then what is love without works? No love. Agreed, Monica. Not love. Not love. All right, so I'm going to keep these phone lines open for another moment or two. And Great Dane is so awesome. Great Dane says, that's why I can't forgive them yet. They haven't earned that by their continued shunning. And I agree. That's the same thing we talked about in the last video, Great Dane. I am just not down to automatically forgive somebody for that. It's just not in me to do that. I just can't be like, oh, I forgive you because the Bible says so. No, I'm not down with that. The Bible also says you should take care of your family and be there for your family. So if you're going to break one of the quote unquote words of the Bible, then I'm going to break one too. I agree, Paul. Paul says it's best most of them don't speak or say anything to me. I don't forgive easily. As far as I'm concerned, they are full of shit. And that's exactly what I think too. Because you have to be full of shit to disown your own son or daughter. You have to be full of shit. You have to be completely full of shit. So, again, to wrap up, guys, as in that dream and how that dream relates, I really feel that at a certain point, and as much as we all want to have those people in our lives, as much as we want for them to be there for us and them to come around to us and for them to listen to and love us the way they did when we were in the organization, there's going to reach a point where it is going to be unhealthy for us to continue to try to reach out to those people. It's going to be physically and mentally unhealthy for us to continue to do that. And so I would hope that before we even reach that point, that we can see that point coming well enough to be able to intervene in our own lives and intervene against ourselves the same way in that dream, which is what was happening. I feel like in that dream, I was intervening in my own life, and I was telling myself, you're trying to fix too many people at once. Which one of those people can you help right now, in this moment? Find that person and help that person. And that person was me. That is it. In this situation, I am the one that I can fix. I am the only one that I personally can fix. Without a doubt, I can fix myself. I can help myself. And those winds of change have to be initiated by me. And I'm the only one who can feel those winds of change. So guys, Thank you again for joining the show tonight. I will be back tomorrow. I'm not really sure what I'm going to talk about right now, but I'm sure it will happen. I'm sure I'll come up with it. I have a couple of options. I just haven't decided which ones I want to stick with yet. So we'll see. So I will be back tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Central. Great Dane says, when you stop caring, it's a lot better at Michelle Martin. Yeah, you are totally right, Great Dane. But in before, you know what, Great Dane, you have just said the last thing that needs to be said today. So we're gonna leave it with you, as we have before. Great Dane, I appreciate you so much being here, being in the chat. You always have such great things to say, so I appreciate you. Appreciate all of you guys who have been in the chat tonight, who have been here and watched the show. And I will see you all tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. Thanks so much for your support, guys. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Central. See you on the next one. Peace.